and welcome to another episode of Your Next Favorite Movie. I am your host, Josh G, and today I'm joined by Tim from this On Second Watch podcast. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about On Second Watch?
Yeah, so our podcast consists of five people. It's a little bit nuts, but all the time we would get together as friends and just talk about movies that we grew up on. And what our podcast is all about is we take movies that we're mostly nostalgic for. So something that's at least 10 years old. We explore things from way back, just whatever we have a piece of nostalgia for. And we first discuss what we think we remember about the movie and what it meant to us as kids or early teens or whatever. And then we rewatch it and see if it really holds up. We found a number of movies that got better with age and some just didn't hit the mark that they did as kids. That's the fun part of it, is just really kind of exploring that. So that's what we're all about.
Yeah, and I would say, just to comment on one of your episodes specific, I'd say some of them weren't good as a kid and didn't hold up, a la Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, we knew that was a train wreck going into it, but I tried to pull out as many gems as I could, but it's a little hard. That's rough.
Yeah, you took one for everyone there because I don't think anyone wants to have to revisit that one.
Well, it was all for charity. We raised over $900 for that movie, so you know what? It's worth it.
You know what? If I could raise that for it, I would sit through it again myself. And I haven't seen it since the theater. So well done, sir. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So I'm releasing this on Star Wars Day. So May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with you.
And I'll let you choose. And at first, you went with a more typical pick with The Empire Strikes Back. And then you're like, you know what? Let's get a little wild. And that's what I like. I like it when people get a little wild. So tonight, we're going to be talking about Star Wars The Last Jedi. So when did you first see this one?
It was in theaters. I mean, Star Wars it's my life. It controlled so much of how I shaped my career and everything. So once Disney bought the franchise, it was all about, it's like, okay, well, let's track what's going on here. We got to see these movies no matter what. So midnight showing was my first viewing of The Last Jedi. It was crazy because I feel like a lot of fans came out of that seeing that movie for the first time, like really enjoying it. And then when they got time to dissect it a bit and think about it, a lot of people went the totally different directions. So that's why I really wanted to touch on The Last Jedi, because it seems like you either love it or you hate it. There's no in between. And I thought, let's get a chance to kind of talk about that a bit and how Disney may or may not have screwed up the sequel trilogy.
All right. So first off, for anyone who may have not seen it, give a synopsis just of The Last Jedi. What's going on in this installment?
So typical to The Empire Strikes Back, you have, this is the middle of a trilogy. So, um, you know, the it's a chance for the bad guys to kind of come back and give one to, the good guys, the New Republic, or the Resistance as they call themselves in this one. So it's really a drawn out chase scene where the Republic, I keep calling the Republic, the Resistance is all on their last leg, and the First Order is basically chasing them down. They're running out of fuel. They're trying to get to safety. There's a lot of stuff going on in it, but there's the evolution of the main baddie, Kylo Ren and Rey, really feeling each other out. They're trying to find Luke Skywalker, get him back to join the fray. It's really a movie that exposes the weakness across all characters and a lot of chance to grow. And we can get into it, but that's some of the stuff I liked, is even though people may have seen characters in a way they didn't expect to or didn't want to, it just exposes as overall a lot of the flaws in the characters that helps kind of build them, or could have built them, in this overall trilogy arc. Some landed, some didn't, but it's really it's a big chase scene trying to get Luke back, to give the Resistance a chance to survive this onslaught from the First Order, and I don't know what to say besides that, but it's there's a lot of stuff that happens here.
Okay. So I know Star Wars. It's So I don't really go into like in-depth detail on these episodes.
Mm-hmm.
This is just kind of introduction stuff. So we talked about what it's about. Why is it you want to talk about this one specifically? Like, what is it you want to get across?
So for this one, really, I think it has the makings of a great story, and it gives you a chance to see characters in a light that you may not have. Like I alluded to with Luke Skywalker, everyone puts him on a pedestal as he's the Jedi. He's perfect. But in the original trilogy, he's a very flawed individual, and he made a lot of mistakes, and his confidence and his, emotion led him down a path that almost cost him his life, cost him his friends. So even though the original trilogy lands and he has this, this big celebration, the empire is destroyed, then we get this huge gap of what happened to Luke afterwards. And when we're introduced to him again, they could have gone and had this prophet. He's like the next Yoda, some perfect Jedi. But what we get is a very flawed, destroyed person. The things and decisions that he made that got him to this point are things that he's done since he was a child. So I think this movie really had a lot of potential to explore these characters and show them in a light that people may not have seen, which is what I think Rian Johnson was trying to do. And the reason why I want to talk about this movie is because Disney had no vision for the next sequel trilogy. Everything they built up in The Last Jedi basically just erased it for Rise of Skywalker. It's just, you could have done without The Last Jedi basically and still got, a Star Wars story. So I think there's a lot of things that Rian Johnson laid down that J.J. Abrams retconned and just went his own way. So I wanted to talk about what The Last Jedi meant to me, and then also maybe what the final ultimate episode could have been to wrap up the Skywalker saga.
All right. Well, that leads us to the next part. So before you go into what you would do, let's just get your brief thoughts on. I know Empire Strikes Back is actually your all-time favorite, right?
Yeah.
So let's get your brief thoughts on the prequel, and then the original trilogy, and then the prequels, and then we'll get into Force Awakens, and then we'll move past that after that.
Absolutely. So yeah, obviously, original trilogy is the bread and butter. It has everything that monolithic story. It has everything in it. And the reason why Empire has always been my favorite, and I think it hits a lot of people as their favorite, is because of what George Lucas and the company did to bring that story out. I mean, I think I hear, I wasn't around back in, late 70s when that came out. But it was different in that in the end of that movie, the bad guys won. Okay. There's a lot of building character development. There's a lot of exploration to how grand this galaxy is. But when all is said and done, the good guys lost hard in that movie. And it was still a very solid experience where, sometimes trilogies come out and you get that middle movie and it's just like, okay, they didn't go anywhere with it. It's just, they leave you on a cliffhanger and you're kind of lost looking for answers. Empire Strikes Back, even though the bad guys win, you do get a lot of answers. You get a lot of discovery about characters. You get a lot of growth and a lot of opportunity to discuss and talk about what can be. And that's really why I love it. Empire just kind of brings you so much, really gives you an experience of who Darth Vader is, who Luke is, introduction to Yoda. There's so many moving pieces and really the character development piece that just, it sells it as an amazing story, some great action sequences with Hoth and in space. And so, and plus you really get to understand what the Force is. I mean, you touch on it a little bit in A New Hope, but the, Empire Strikes Back is you get to learn with Yoda about what it's all about, how you can channel it. And you really get to see Luke for, his confidence in what he can do and his total, disregard for his teachings from, Yoda and Obi-Wan to go try to save the day and fail miserably, so it's just, it really sets things up and it's just great storytelling, great action. And plus the introduction of the Imperial March is in Empire Strikes Back, which is probably one of the greatest, musical scores for the bad guys of any film franchise ever.
Completely agree. All right, so let's get some brief thoughts on the prequels then.
So the prequels come out, and it's been so long since we had any new Star Wars outside of video games and things like that. And I'm really looking forward to this as a teenager. I'm getting ready, and then the prequels come out, and I feel like I missed something. It's just like it wasn't for me anymore. Obviously he was trying to tailor to a younger audience, and this is kind of my thought about George Lucas is he's a master world builder, and he creates these he created a galaxy with so much to it. He but his failure to me is in his directing and part of his storytelling. So I think one of the great things about the original trilogy is, yes, he was very involved. It was his story, but he had other people directing The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. When it came to the prequels, he had full control over that. And I think he has a hard time getting everything out of his head. And maybe, the prequels, I think, are aging better than they had originally, with the, Dave Filoni taking over the Clone Wars and turning that into this massive thing, which has brought us into some great storytelling and, really the Mandalorian TV series on Disney Plus. So the prequels didn't hit me very well. And they're some of the worst movies, in my opinion, with, the Phantom Menace and especially Attack of the Clones. I did not like that movie at all. I think I've only seen it a few times. It just doesn't do anything for me. I think the acting is very flat. The overall story of the prequel trilogy, I think, is phenomenal. It's just not well told, So I think I've learned a lot more about, from the expanded universe and people telling their own stories, which makes it feel better, especially with the Clone Wars and things like that. But all that said, the Revenge of the Sith is one of my favorite movies. Because of everything that went down. And again, the bad guys winning, kind of thing. But I think you really got to see some great development between Obi-Wan and Anakin. And that was some of the best, points of this entire, prequel trilogy. So I still love that movie. It's got a great soundtrack. I love everything that John Williams touches, but I think Lucas really had a good idea with the story. It just was not executed the way that I think it probably should have.
All right, that sounds good. I guess now we'll get into this trilogy. So we'll start with Force Awakens.
Yeah. So The Force Awakens, I had a lot of really high expectations for the sequel trilogy. I know what Disney can do and what they have done. So I was hoping that it would go in a direction that would really expand the universe a bit. And with The Force Awakens, I feel like, I'll just say that, Kylo Ren is probably one of my favorite characters. My end game is to be able to create a, replica Kylo Ren costume and start, doing some charity events with hospitals and kids and stuff like that. So that's what I want to do. It's just very expensive to do and don't really have the time. So that's a dream of mine. But I thought that movie in particular was very heavy in, I don't like to use the word fan service. It basically echoes A New Hope in so many ways, almost beat for beat in a lot of ways. It's basically a retelling of A New Hope, which I'm okay with because it expanded in certain areas that I think were important and brought a lot of new characters and new ideas. But the overall story is very similar to A New Hope. And, for better or worse, I don't hate or dislike it for kind of following that path. But it opened up a lot of potential that I was really looking forward to and seeing where the sequel trilogy went. Unfortunately, I feel like Disney was in a rush to get their money back for what they spent to buy everything, that they're just like, yeah, we'll just throw Star Wars out on anything and it'll make a bunch of money and we'll be fine. I think they underestimated the wrath of the Star Wars fandom and what they saw from The Last Jedi and then Rise of Skywalker. Thank God The Mandalorian came out to save face a little bit. But yeah, without that overall vision, I think they really struggled. And even though The Force Awakens, I think, hit a lot of areas, a lot of points where that was, really fantastic. Um, because a totally different vision for The Last Jedi. It kind of, instead of like pumping the brakes and kind of pivoting, it was a huge slam on the brakes. People didn't know what to think. Expectations were slashed, and then we ended up with the Rise of Skywalker, which was a mess of a movie, to try to cram all these thoughts and ideas into a 2.5 hour block.
Okay, so I think in this, instead of spoiling Rise of Skywalker, let's just go into what you would have liked to have seen in the saga, how the saga ended.
Yeah, so just, I know a lot of people are saying, redo The Last Jedi, or just fade it out of the canon, which I'm not going to do, because I really love that movie because of what it did. So building off of what Rian Johnson did, and where the characters were going, I really wanted to, my thought, and I tried really hard not to let my head canon interfere with the Rise of Skywalker. I just couldn't help it. But my thought was that they were going to kind of lean in on some of what George Lucas was laying down in the original trilogy. Uh, Basically, that the Empire are kind of like the basically like the Nazis of the Star Wars galaxy. Um, where I thought they were going to go was, we have this General Hux who keeps just getting thrown aside by Snoke and by Kylo. It just, so he's basically like this general, this leader of, this army, and he constantly is just getting bullied and picked on and thrown around. So my thought was that he was going to rise and kind of take over. The the first order would realize that all this chaos, all this destruction over decades, was all because of either the Jedi or the Sith. These people that were wielding this power, that thought they were better than everybody, were controlling the galaxy. I mean, obviously with Palpatine, and then it was Snoke and Kylo, these evil, Force users were controlling things and were the leaders because they could control the Force. And then in, before the Empire, with the Jedi Council, even though there was a government of sorts of democracy that was kind of making the rules and the law for the galaxy, the Jedi were sent in to control things. They were basically the undercover cops that would go in, and if things weren't going the way the Republic wanted, then the Jedi would force it to go that way. So I thought that they'd do something creative in that Hux, being a non-force sensitive person, would take control with the government of the First Order and say, look, these, whether they're Jedi or Sith, these people are taking advantage of the galaxy because they have control of the Force. We need to eradicate people that are strong with the Force, because they bring the destruction. They prevent us from truly controlling the galaxy. So leaning on what Lucas introduced with, the Phantom Menace being able to measure someone's midichlorian count, I thought they would say, in kind of a Nazi way of, let's go around the galaxy, let's measure people's midichlorian counts, and, let's either, kill them, or, obtain them, whatever. Just basically try to eradicate anyone that had the Force in them from the galaxy. They'd go planet to planet as new people were being born. They would check them at birth, or just something like that. Just show how evil they could be of trying to control. And in turn, because they agreed to follow Hux in this, that they tried to get Kylo, and he, escaped barely with his life after, the entire First Order turned on him. And his only chance was to meet up with the Resistance and Rey, and obviously they don't trust him. And they work on this relationship, and just, 'cause you see that beat sometimes where one of the bad guys, meets with, the group of the good guys, and they try to kind of intermingle and try to bring them into the fray. No one trusts them. One person will trust them, maybe the rest don't. And then you get, some opportunities to develop, those relationships that way. That's kind of what I was really hoping they would go down that path, to give Kylo a redemption story in that way. and maybe explore a bit more about, because the end of Last Jedi, you get dubbed the broom boy, the kid that was sitting there watching the stars, and he uses the force and pull the broom up. So it says that anyone, could develop these powers. And to me, I thought that the First Order would find that as a threat, and they would form some plan to hunt down any force users, whether they're humanoid or creatures or what have you, or locations, and just eradicate it from the planet to try to erase the force from the galaxy. That's kind of where my head was going, and I really was hoping maybe they'd go down that path with Hux being who he was. He was basically, they made him worthless. In The Rise of Skywalker, he died the most lame death of any character that's spanned across 3 movies. But I don't know. I don't. However they went with The Rise of Skywalker, it's canon. It is what it is. It just it just didn't deliver. Basically, because they had no vision from the beginning, it just was a mess, and someone tried to clean up someone else's mess, and then they came back and tried to clean up the mess. It was a mess. The whole sequel trilogy is a mess. There's some great points to it, sure, but I was hoping that we'd get more of a darker view of the First Order, because they basically were just the Empire 2.0, and it didn't really do much for me. They followed the same beats and fell for the same traps.
All right, sounds good. Well, they're probably going to do it here in a few years and start remaking the trilogy again or something similar.
Oh yeah, why not?
So I guess what we'll do, instead of doing a remake of the whole trilogy, let's just ask this: if there were any characters you would replace, like with certain people in mind, I guess we can do it with this movie, like Rey or Finn.
Replace. I had a hard time picking like an actor or an actress that I'd like to see, jump in there. I think the character development in and of itself could have been changed a bit. I think Finn's character, they were going down a path and they stopped. And I thought they did that character dirty in a way, because in The Last Jedi, you see him, well, really before that, The Force Awakens, you have Finn trying to figure out who he is, what's his place in the galaxy. And then by the time The Last Jedi comes around, he's like, he's scared. And then he says, oh, I'm going to be a hero. And then he gets saved from trying to, sacrifice himself from Rose. And she says, that line of, we're not going to, I don't remember it now. It's
yeah, I don't remember it.
Whatever it is, some line about, using love to fight instead of hate or whatever. So I thought that Finn could have gone the direction, especially as they start teasing that he's somewhat force sensitive, that he would have more of a development to understand what his place was and how he would impact the greater good. And I wouldn't replace Boyega with anybody. I think he did a great job as that role, but I feel like they really just didn't know what to do with him after The Last Jedi, so they just abandoned him, because he didn't serve much of a purpose in The Rise of Skywalker. So I would have liked to see him be able to really lean into this notion of force sensitivity and expand on that and see where he could take it, because I think there's definitely some potential there. And I think Boyega had the charisma and the swagger to pull it off, but we never got it.
Okay. Anybody for Rey or anything? You okay with Daisy Ridley as Rey?
I mean, yeah, I don't think there's anyone I could think of replacing, really. I think everyone did the best that they could with what they had.
Okay.
I really like Daisy Ridley. I think she's a great actress, and she pulled it off, of just kind of feeling a bit lost, and she pulled off the rage, I thought, well. Adam Driver, I love Adam Driver, what he did with Kylo Ren. I think he was one of the strongest. I think Kylo Ren's one of the strongest characters in the entire saga, with what he had to deal with and what he came through. So I don't know. I have a hard time thinking anyone could be replaced in in Star Wars. It's kind of a tough thing for me to pick apart.
Would we at least take out the scene with him shirtless with his pants like pulled up over his belly button? That random scene that I was like,
it's a weird scene, but my God, is it memeable?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
The best thing that came out of that is just the weird gifts and the things I could just send my friends randomly. So I don't know.
That's true. Living in a meme world, yeah, you're right. That is important. So I can't argue with that logic.
Had to have something.
All right. So what I want you to do for anyone who's not sold on either why they should go down this path for the first time or maybe why they should revisit The Last Jedi, give that final pitch on why.
It's a really great opportunity to see your heroes and your villains and what makes them flawed, what their weaknesses are, and helps you also discover what their strengths are in a way that I think most people didn't expect. Luke Skywalker, and I think people were shocked with Luke throwing the lightsaber and for some reason drinking the sea cow's milk. Just, I mean, it's weird. Okay, I'm not gonna deny that, but it shows Luke's reliance in the Force to try to tell him what to do, and you letting the emotions control him. The fact that the Force said that Kylo was going to do something terrible, so he went to go, just let the emotions take over and go kill him, but then stopped. He stopped himself, but it was already too late because Kylo already thought he was going to do it. And basically Luke caused the final turn of Kylo Ren by letting the Force control him, letting his emotions control him. So it's very similar to what he did in Empire Strikes Back. So you really get a sense and a chance to see these characters and what makes them flawed and how they grow from that. They can either move beyond that and become a better person, or they let their flaws control them and they fall down a dark path, which I think, you see a little bit of both of that in a lot of those characters. So if you haven't seen The Last Jedi, you've always been like, no, I can't do it. At least for the scene in the throne room where Rey and Kylo meet and fight the Praetorian guards is probably one of the best lightsaber scenes in the saga. It's a fantastic scene, everything leading up with Snoke and everything that happens afterward. It's beautiful. It's such an amazing scene. So if nothing else, just check out this, 10-minute scene right there in the middle towards the end. It's a fantastic lightsaber battle with huge implications and everything working for it. So it's a great watch.
All right. I think that one's going to wrap this up. Tim, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you online?
Yeah, absolutely. So like we said, our podcast is called On Second Watch. You can find us at oswpodcast.com or on social media, same thing, OSW Podcast. Having fun on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we're hitting up Star Wars soon too. So we're looking for everyone's nostalgia. So have fun with that.
Oh yeah, that should be fun. And as always, you can follow the show at ynfmoviepod on Twitter and Instagram. And we'll be back next week with a different movie and a new guest. And who knows, that may become your next favorite movie. You guys take care. I'll talk to you next time.